We are Duck Hunting Fanatics, knee deep in the duck blind. If it flies, it dies. Only Duck Hunting Fanatics know what it feels like to see a brightly colored drake mallard cup its wings and soar towards your decoys. It's what we do, and it's what we love. Duck Hunting Fanatics, with boots on the ground, eyes in the skies reports. And we get it from professional duck guides all across the country. We interview them for their top tips and tricks from their years of experience from the duck hunting blind. This is Duck Hunting Fanatics, and this is Eric Wilkes.
Greetings, friends and fellow duck hunting fanatics. Eric Wilkes here, back with another episode of Knee Deep in the Duck Blind here at Duck Hunting Fanatics. And today we're going to talk about an interesting topic, one that I'm a huge personal believer in, and that is your choke tube that you decide to use in your shotgun. Now, I have a very special guest with us today. I have Chuck Boswell from Kicks Choke Tubes. Chuck, thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, Eric. It is a pleasure to be with you. Looking forward to trying to get some information out and maybe clear up some things that people don't understand.
Well, yeah, there's an array of topics. I mean, we can literally go off the cliff on choke tubes and talk about this, for hours. And, we're definitely going to do that. We're going to break this up into some digestible segments, but, just to open it up and mainly just for like maybe someone who doesn't understand choke tubes, they're just getting into hunting, they're kind of a beginner and, they haven't been hunting like, some guys have been hunting for over 30 years. What's the importance of a choke tube?
Well, the importance of a choke tube in waterfowl, let's just say we're staying in the waterfowl side of things here, it's getting you the proper pattern for whatever distance you need. And when I say distance, I mean the average shot distance that you're going to be shooting in your setup. Whatever it is, 30 yards, 40 yards, 50 yards. You try to set the choke up to give the shooter the best chance or the best size pattern at whatever that distance is the bottom line. It's basically like it's like a lot of guys that hunt will play around the golf. When you play golf, you have different irons that hit the ball different distances. A choke tube is the same thing. You're really catering that pattern to be the optimum size at whatever distance your average shot distance is going to be.
Right. And, part of that, what a lot of guys overlook, in my opinion, there's no such thing as a universal choke tube, right? You're going to have different choke tubes, especially in waterfowl during different times of the season, right? You're going to have one for early season where the birds come in a little bit closer. And then as the season progresses, the birds get pressured, they get smarter. And you're going to end up having to shoot a little bit further. So it's really important that you select the right choke tube for your area, the type of waterfowl that you're hunting, and it really just comes down to that average distance that you're going to be shooting. And, it's also important on the pattern side, right, to make sure we have the right pattern because you want those pellets concentrated to take down a duck. I mean, it's a large animal. You're shooting at a pretty far distance. It's not as easy as just, point and shoot. You really got to make sure you give yourself a good chance to actually hit your target.
Right. Yeah. And, just for an example, you don't want to handicap yourself with the wrong choke. Let's say you're hunting a good spread and you're averaging a 30-yard shot and you've got an extra full high flyer in there that's going to give you a 30-inch pattern at 50 yards. You're handicapping yourself. You want that choke to be matched as close to whatever your distance is. And in waterfowl, in industry-wise for years and years, the optimum size pattern for waterfowl is a 30-inch pattern. That's what you want to achieve at whatever your optimum distance. So that's what you try to get. If I've got customers that are shooting, decoy and shooting 40-yard maximum shots, I'm going to give them a modified, and that's all they need, But when you get later in the season and you get, birds that are passing. Let's say you roll into snow geese season where you're always shooting passing birds, then you want the tightest choke we can get you for the ammunition you set up. And ammunition does play, your shot size does have a role in what chokes you can use, but generally, you know, you can go right on to the tighter chokes. It really all comes down to whatever your setup's going to be in your average shot.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, there's a lot of different styles of choke tubes too, right? You've got flush mount, you've got extended. Maybe just talk a little bit about, you know, flush mount and extended. For those of you that don't know, flush mount means it just screws into your barrel and it mounts flush with the end of your barrel. And extended choke is going to extend out beyond the barrel. Maybe just speak a little bit to, you know, some of the advantages to each of those. And then, you know, what would you recommend in extended? And I know it's a tough question to answer because I think a lot of it still depends on the type of season. But maybe what your preference is and when you're going to deploy a flush mount versus an extended. Loaded question there, but hopefully you got it all.
Well, I'm gonna have to give you the kicks answer to that. We're gonna recommend an extended choke for sure. There's advantages to an extended choke. Now, personally, in every gun I have, whether it's clay shooting, turkey hunting, whatever, I'm shooting an extended ported choke, one of our extended ported chokes. And the reason that we do this is the extended portion of that choke, and in most of these kicks chokes, that extended portion is going to be about 1 3/8 inch. I mean, they'll vary a 1/4 inch from different gun types, but that's going to be the average. And there's a reason behind that length. And when it comes back to engineering of these things, and let me say on a background side before we get into chokes that we come from an industrial manufacturing background. My dad started an industrial machining business in 1972 where we supplied industrial customers with machine parts. And so we came into the shotgun industry different than a lot of manufacturers do that are in this industry. We didn't come from a gunsmithing background. We came from a machining background. So number one, we know how to machine, and we know how to machine correctly, holding tolerance, and using the best materials, because this is what we had to do in the industrial side of things. And you had quality control, you know, you had running small parts for different corporations. You know, you had to be precise, and they had to be inspect. Now, we roll that into choke tubes, and we go above and beyond on manufacturing because we know better what works on the manufacturing side to have a good product. Now, the design with these things, these kicks chokes, they're going to be about a 1 3/8 extension. And that extended portion of that choke is a parallel section. Now, you read in say you get one of our catalogs and it'll say you got a certain amount of conical section and then a certain amount of parallel. Well, let me give you in layman's terms what that is. The conical section, if you screw a choke tube in your gun and the end of the choke that screws down in the barrel, that goes in the barrel, that seats in the barrel, you're going to start usually with a little bit bigger diameter than your cylinder bore, and then it's going to gradually angle or cone down till you get to your constriction. And when you get to your constriction, that is parallel choke. So for an example, say a modified high flyer is about 10,000ths of constriction. So in decimal terms, that would be like 0.010. That's just a tiny bit tighter than your cylinder bore, but that's a lot of difference in pattern performance. It doesn't take a lot of difference in that diameter to tighten it up. Just say a high flyer extra full, which is as tight as you can shoot steel shot with, that's 25,000ths of constriction, 0.025. That's very small if you measure it. But it's a lot of difference in pattern size. It doesn't take a lot of difference in that diameter to control your pattern size. So what we do is all of our chokes are constricted. We still use the old constriction method in manufacturing chokes. Like way back, say when I was a kid, I had a Browning with a 28-inch modified barrel, fixed barrel. And it was the same design. It was 20 thousandths tighter than cylinder. And that's still what we use in our choke tubes. But what we do is that extended portion, that parallel section, is longer than a flush choke. If you have a flush choke from the factory, you've got the conical section, but you only have usually like maybe 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch of actual choke in the barrel. So it doesn't give the shot time to compress together. So the pattern performance is not going to be as good because simply it just doesn't have time for the shot to be compressed and get formed in there. Now, what these ported chokes do in this extended portion, that holds the shot together, and then you've got the porting versus non-porting issue. And there's advantages to ported chokes. If there was no advantage to porting of these chokes, we would not make a ported choke. I would make a non-ported simply for the fact that I could do it for less expense, and you wouldn't, if there was no difference, it wouldn't make any difference. The customer wouldn't see any benefit out of it. But when we engineered these things, you can notice on a Kicks choke that it's got quite a few of these angle ported holes in them, and the way we port them is they're ported at a 45-degree angle away from the shooter. And the actual tool we use is a tapered tool, so you have a compound taper in those ports, which all it's designed to do is strip wad. It's designed to relieve the back pressure off your shot string. So that's why personally I like to shoot a ported choke, because number one, you're going to get a denser pattern, a tighter pattern out of the constriction of the long parallel. That's going to keep the shot in there to give you a tighter pattern. But the ports are going to be what's going to relieve the back pressure, and that lets your shot get out of the barrel without the wad or the back pressure distorting the shot string. So when you roll all that into layman's terms here, that what you're going to get when you pull the trigger is normally you're going to get a denser core pattern, very consistent on point of impact. So that's what you get. We started in this industry, in the turkey industry, and turkey chokes, you're pushing it to the absolute extreme. I mean, you're choking it as tight as you can possibly get it without blowing the pattern. And that's what you're looking for, a 12-inch pattern at 40 yards or a 10-inch pattern at 40 yards. But you can take that same design and open the choke up, and you can have a 30-inch pattern at 30 or a 30-inch at 40, and it's very consistent. We're looking for a nice uniform pattern, slightly core dense. And usually compared to a factory choke, you're going to keep an average of 30 or 35% of the pellets in that 30-inch circle to where they were going to be in a non-ported choke or basically a flush-mounted choke. You're going to have about 30% of the pellets in flyers. It's going to be out of the pattern. So bottom line is you're going to get a denser pattern, a more uniform pattern, and a more consistent point of impact pattern. And, I mean, that's it. That's what we try to do.
Yeah, and you couldn't have described what you do at Kicks any clearer, I don't think. That was one of my next questions is, what do you think is the difference? But you truly just described it. It comes down to, again, ported, stripping the wadding, releasing the back pressure, and producing a denser, tighter, more consistent pattern. And you hit the nail on the head. I think, a lot of guys who duck hunt also turkey hunt. You can learn a lot about choke tubes. That's how I first got into choke tubes, when I first started turkey hunting in my younger days. Right. And when I started realizing, what choke tubes do and how they actually work, it's like, oh my gosh, you'd be almost crazy not to, give yourself the advantage, especially if you're shooting some of those, longer distances as the season progresses. The tighter the shot pattern, the better. I also am a believer in those extended choke tubes when it comes to, changing weather conditions, changing locations, right? And those extended choke tubes, I'll be honest, you could screw them in by hand and unscrew them by hand.
Yeah.
Versus if you got those flush mount choke tubes, right, you got to have the tool. You can't just quickly make a change. It's not as easy. So the extended choke tubes definitely make it easier. And it's really important as the season progresses. One day it might rain, so the birds might not come in as close.
Yeah.
Where the other day it might be clear, so they come in a little closer. There's just an evolution, and it's never ending. It feels like, especially where I live. I live up in Wisconsin, and we live right on the jet stream. So depending on what the jet stream is going to do, if it's north or south, and it's always moving. And I tell my wife all the time, if I had to have a different career, I'd be a meteorologist in Wisconsin, because you literally can guess and they're wrong 90% of the time. So,
wow.
but my whole point,
you're exactly right. Yeah, exactly right.
And so I think it's also a significant advantage when you're in a hurry, especially when you're, physically out hunting and you're physically in the field. Those extended choke tubes are a very distinct advantage, because you can just pop one out, pop the other one in, do it all by hand, and you don't have to worry about messing with tools or dropping something. Off you go. You just switch out and bang, you're back to hunting.
Yeah, I mean it's very quick, and I have customers that I try to steer into have two chokes out there with you, carry a modified and an extra full, and you pretty much got everything covered. And if you need to change when you're in the blind, just change. I mean, it's the invention of the Invector choke was just revolutionary in shotgunning, because it made it where you could buy one shotgun and do anything you wanted to do with it. Where in the old days you'd have to have different barrels or different guns. I mean, when I was young, I had that 28-inch modified barrel, but like my dad had a 30-inch full, and if they were shooting buckshot or whatever, and these serious hunters when I was young, if I saw a guy come out with a 30-inch full barrel, he was no joke. He was the real deal. And now, I mean, you can buy a gun and really make it do anything you want to do with just changing the choke tube.
Yeah, so you don't have to go buy all the extra barrels anymore. I mean, you just a quick change, and I mean, literally in less than 30 seconds, you can swap choke tubes, and you're in and out, and you're on your way and still hunting. So some significant advantages there.
Right.
So, well, fill us in real quick, Chuck. What do you guys have going on at Kicks Choke Tubes? What you have anything new that's coming out for 2022?
Well, right now we're just rolling out of turkey season good, and we're turning back over to 100% production on high flyers, vortexes, buck kickers, fall hunting season. So it's going into the fall, which is our busy time. Really, this year, here now, it's almost a challenge just to keep up with new guns on the market and what choke tubes they take. And, I've got in stock here, all these new guns that are on the market, Retays, Impalas, CZ1012s, ATA Venzas, all these guns take their own choke system for the most part. So it's a real challenge for us here just to keep up with all these different gun types and what choke they use and getting some on the floor. But I can tell you one thing, and I had some of these last year, but I really didn't have a chance to really market them very heavy. I don't think I even had them on the web store. But with the craziness now of sub-gauge guns have just gone crazy. 410 guns in turkey hunting and in waterfowl hunting have really gotten popular. So this year we're gonna offer a line of high flyers in the 410 chokes, and actually I'm getting some stocked up as we speak. And with the availability of bismuth, that's what a lot of people are shooting in these 28 gauges and 410s. I mean, in the past that would have been unheard of to shoot a 410 duck hunting unless you were a kid, and you didn't have a choice. But now with choking and these new technology ammunition that are on the market, I mean, they can be a very, very good setup. I mean, just on turkey side of thing with TSS shot, I mean, honestly, you can take a turkey at 40 yards with no issue with a 410. When I first started hunting with my Browning 28-inch modified barrel, I couldn't take a turkey at 30 yards with a 12 gauge. But now things are totally different. So we are stocking sub gauges, and I'll promote them this year a little more once I get some inventory in stock. But really for customers, if they get in these newer guns that are on the market, and there's just a boatload of really, really good inertia-driven guns now that's come on the market, and they're good guns for a good price, and we're just trying to make sure we can offer our product in all of these guns that are on the market that you just can't go into a retailer and pick one up off the shelf. They're a little hard to find.
Yeah, and that's always a challenge too, is just keeping up with the different designs and the different chokes, fitting in, making sure they all fit in the tube properly and they're to your guys' specification. And it's really it's really just the technology. It's the evolution of hunting. And now, you can almost buy one gun, one shotgun, one good 12 gauge, and you literally can use it for anything. Because of the choke the choke tubes that are out there. So it's really interesting how it's all changing so quickly.
Yeah, the quality of these firearms now have gotten really good, and for cost effectiveness, you can get a really good gun for not a whole lot of money. But I would like to tell guys that one of the really probably, I'm going to say, the most important factor if you're looking at a gun is you need to get a gun that fits you, because I've seen, especially in sporting plays when you're doing gun fits and such, if you don't have a gun that fits you right, where you throw it up and you're shooting, what I call shooting flat, that means shooting straight point of impact, not shooting high or low. That's the main thing. You need to get a gun that'll fit you. And when you get that gun fitted, or the gun suits you on how you shoot, then you can start really tweaking it with choke tubes and, really get the performance right. But you got to have that point of impact dead on, or you're never going to perform well with a gun.
Yeah, no, so true. And, and I know sometimes it's hard for guys going to the store, right? You can't really try before you buy kind of thing, especially depending on where you live. And so it makes it all the more difficult, but also the more important to make sure it does fit you right. So you are shooting flat, and especially with the versatility you have of them, you want to make sure it fits you so that it is truly a versatile weapon for you, and you can use it for multiple
definitely
games.
Needs to fit. That's very important to have that gun fit. And I would encourage anybody that even if they've had a gun for 5 years, go out and get you a big piece of cardboard, 30 by 30 or 40 by 40, something big. Go out there and shoot it a few times, and just make sure that your point of impact looks pretty good for where you're aiming. That's really very important to have that right.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, awesome. Well, I definitely, we'll have you on another show. Like I said, I know we can talk about this stuff for hours. I don't want to bore our listeners too much just yet. We're going to kind of divide this up, and we'll definitely be in touch with you, Chuck. We'll start to outline some content, together, and we can start to map out what this looks like. And we'll try to keep this in some of these shorter bite-sized segments so guys can actually digest and learn. And once again, I want to say we really appreciate your time, and glad you could be here with us today.
Absolutely, anytime. It's been a pleasure, and I'm more than happy to help any of the guys with patterning issues anytime.
You got it, my friends. With again, we have from Kicks Choke Tubes here. We have Chuck Boswell, who graciously donated some of his time to hang out with us and talk choke tubes today and the importance of them. So hopefully you got some value out of it. I do want to make one special announcement. Chuck and Kicks Choke Tubes has agreed to offer our Duck Hunting Fanatics friends a coupon, a discount code. If you go out to their website, they're graciously going to give you 15% off. It also lets them know that you guys are tuning in, you're listening, you're getting some good value out of it, and gives them sort of a way to understand who our audience is, and let them know that our Duck Hunting Fanatics friends are showing them some love. So we appreciate that. We don't get any commission or anything like that. It's just simply a way to let them know, hey, we're from Duck Hunting Fanatics and we love you guys. We appreciate it. And that coupon code is DHF for Duck Hunting Fanatics 15. That's DHF the number 15. And if you just Google kicks, chokes, choke tubes, that's probably the easiest way to get to it. The website is kicks-ind.com. That's kicks, just like you're kicking the wall, kicks-ind.com, or just go to Google and look them up, or go to Facebook and look them up in kicks, choke tubes, and you guys will find them. And again, that one last time, that coupon code is DHF for Duck Hunting Fanatics, and the number 15, so DHF15, and just show them a little bit of love, and just show them that you appreciate it, and that you listen to this podcast. We appreciate you guys as well, our listeners. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to continue to do this. So we appreciate you guys tuning in and listening, and we'll look forward to having you on another episode of Knee Deep in the Duck Blind. Everybody have a great day. Thanks so much. Take care.
We are Duck Hunting Fanatics. Knee deep in the duck blind. If it flies, it dies.